Hey everyone, welcome to the I Am Possible podcast. I'm Nicole and I'm so glad you're here. If you're new, welcome to the family. And if you're a regular, you already know what's up. This podcast is all about breaking barriers, shifting mindsets, and celebrating the incredible individuals from the disability community who are rewriting the rules on what it means to live boldly. So grab your favourite drink, get comfy, and let's dive into some stories that are going to give you a fresh perspective. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get this conversation started. Hey Megan, thank you so much for joining me on what is the hottest day in the UK. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. So I'm really excited to talk to you ahead of I Am Possible going to the Paralympics as a gold medalist yourself. What would you say to the athletes as they're kind of building up to the games this year?
I don't know. I guess just stay focused and don't stress too much. Try and relax and enjoy your life as well as train and be very serious, just finding that balance is, I think the more relaxed you can be and the more you can enjoy it, the better overall that you'll play. And I was pretty stressed when I was going into it. So I know that if I could slow down a little more and have more outlets in my life, like things to do outside of it, that would have been really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. What was your experience like at the games?
It was I've been going through a hard time like with mental health for my whole life. It's been a process of healing and so at the games it was a lot of different emotions and just a lot of processing slash like I lived in fear a lot. So I was always feeling like nothing I did was good enough. And I was so hard on myself for like any little mistake. I don't want it to sound like, my experience was horrible because it wasn't, but where I was at mentally, it was hard for me to really enjoy where I was at and what I was doing. But it was a really special experience in Rio in 2016. All the people from Rio were so supportive and loving and excited, and like the attention that they gave to the Paralympics, which it's really been ramping up, every year it gets more and more exposure. And in 2016 we were still really trying to get that attention and respect and coverage and all of that. So it was cool to see what they did for us in Rio and how much they did respect our sports. And that felt really cool, like hearing them chanting and like cheering for you as you go into the stadium for opening ceremonies. That was awesome. Yeah, but I mean, as far as like playing and competing, I was like pretty nervous the whole time. And yeah, it was a big thing to face for me, which was, one of my reasons for always moving forward and trying to get to that place where I have the confidence and trust in myself to handle situations. So yeah, does that answer it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it must be like such an intense experience. How do you look after your mental health in those situations?
Yeah, I think that a lot of my teammates, I mean, everyone has their own journey and is going through their own situations, and their reason for competing or pushing themselves that hard and everything is all different. And I think my teammates on the USA team, definitely had their outlets and their love for the sport. And I don't know, for me, I felt like I just didn't know how to take care of my mental health, honestly. So I think, like I said, now I would I would just I needed to slow down in my life. So I quit the USA team in 2020 when the Paralympics were postponed, and we had a choice to either like keep training, not knowing if they were going to happen, or quit the team. And I chose to quit because I felt like this was a chance in life. Like everything shut down. I need to like really go internal and find myself and figure out who I am, especially outside of wheelchair basketball. So I didn't really know how to have outlets or how to balance my mental health because I had no idea who I was. Because I was in a motorcycle accident when I was 18 and got paralyzed. Before that, I was able-bodied, and I knew more about things I could and couldn't do, and like I got to try things, with accessibility and opportunities. I had so much, and then suddenly it's like if it's not accessible, I'm not necessarily going to be able to try it. So how do I know if I like doing what things I like to do? So it was always just wheelchair basketball was like I was tunnel visioned on just training and going further and further, and I didn't know about myself outside of that. So now, I mean, now I know, and I knew before my accident, I love yard work. I love like building things. I All of this stuff that I didn't really think I could do, I do now, and I know what it takes, and I've learned about myself outside of it, so I feel a lot more at peace, and it would be way different if I started playing again and how I would balance it. But like I don't have a whole lot of good advice for how like at that time because I wasn't doing very well. I was just trying to just keep going no matter what, and I would cry and then I would go back to a training camp, and then I would cry, and it was just like holding on. So yeah, I think just finding that balance for sure. Like, what do you like to do outside of competing? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can imagine finding that balance is so hard with the amount of training that you have to do and
Yeah, because you
preparation.
never really, at least I never really felt like what I did was enough. I never felt like I was eating enough or consistent enough, or did I really push myself at that lift, and sometimes, a lot of times you have to train on your own because of the opportunities around us wherever we're at, and then we come together at a training camp in like Colorado Springs or wherever we go. And then we can push each other and like know where we're at. But when you're just by yourself, it's like, how will I really compare when I'm actually going against one of the best players in the US? Like, um, so that was hard for me too, to always like gauge where I was at and not being able to always just plug into the best training schedule, with a trainer and all of that that's just so consistent that it's so like that stuff is hard. Yeah. But that's also getting way better the more attention we've gotten. Like for the USA team, when I was on it in 2016, we ended up getting a sports psychologist through the I I I don't know for sure. I think it was the Olympic and Paralympic Committee. They also changed the name to the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center. So they started accept like adding us in and representing us, and that really changed like the resources that we were given. So we got a nutritionist as well, and that helped with my eating and what I'm struggling with. And the sports psychologist really, really helped our team. Our coaches in 2016 say that we won gold because of our sports psychologist. Like, she helped bring us all together and fix stuff going on with the coaches, and like helped everyone start noticing what people needed instead of trying to force them to work a certain way. And And that changed a lot of things for a lot of us.
That's amazing. I was going to
Yeah.
ask you actually, like how kind of the representation had impacted the way that they trained you guys, and
Yeah.
like what you hope to see, I guess, this year as well, because this is the first time since COVID.
Well, with the how the resources changed how we trained and everything, it was like at our training camps for a couple of years, we were doing like 3 sessions a day, and we were really exhausted because there was only like a couple hours in between each session, and you have to eat. And I always take a short nap, and like, and then try and go back, and you just got really burnt out. And we were kind of getting a little irritated with each other, like things were just not, we weren't coming into it like fresh and excited and being able to 100% focus, and it was just like barely getting through. And so the nutritionist said that this isn't healthy, and so she changed it so that we had 2 sessions a day, and like everything was just switched up a little bit for all areas, like mental health and physical health. And we had a fitness trainer as well who was awesome and focused on what we needed as athletes using wheelchairs. Because before that, I mean, it was like an able-bodied person that, coached us, but like everything was very, I mean, she was our fitness trainer was also able-bodied, but her focus was figuring out the best thing for us. And, I'm sure that she was paid well to help us, like, instead of having to find like the most affordable and what, it's the best. And so yeah, that changed a lot for us. We started performing way better when we had 2 sessions a day. We were just that was really good. And I think going into this year, I think that it's going to be really awesome to see. I can only imagine how much representation there's going to be around it, because every commercial has like someone in a wheelchair in it, or talking about disability. And then mental health has, the awareness around that has obviously been like the most talked about like topic since COVID. And that means that we finally are like recognizing that so many people struggle, and that there's better ways of helping each other, and that it doesn't make you weak, or it's just you might need a little more support, and that's okay. And so I think that like so many things are gonna just like be drastically better. Like I think there's gonna be some awesome ads with people with disabilities in it. Like I think that the coverage, they'll probably have good commentators that actually explain the sport. Like I hope that I think it's gonna be cool. Mm.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so excited. We got to meet someone actually a few weeks ago who's going to be featured in the opening ceremony.
Oh,
And she
cool.
gets to talk about kind of her experience with disability in France, which is really exciting. So
Cool.
yeah, I can't wait to see what they do.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's cool you guys are gonna get to go
yes,
to,
yeah, we're not going to be there for the ceremony, the opening one, but I can't wait. We've got so much booked.
that's
And I
cool.
can't wait to see wheelchair fencing. It
That'd
looks
be
so,
cool.
so intense. So that'd be so cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so have you always been into sports?
Yeah, I was like the tomboy of the family. I have 4 sisters, so there's 5 of us girls. And I was the only one that was like into sports and yard work and all of this stuff. I played all the sports. I started soccer in kindergarten, and then next year in like the rec league I was playing in, you could start baseball or t-ball in first grade. So I did soccer and t-ball, and then third grade is when you could start basketball. So I started that, and then I did all 3 each year, and then and then I was on a select soccer team for like 4 or 5 years. And then in middle school, I did soccer, basketball, volleyball, and track. And I did select soccer year round still. So I was always playing like 1 to 2 sports at a time. And it kind of just was like, it kind of, I loved it. I was like naturally good at sports and it just made sense. And I think that it helped a lot, like regulate, my hormones or whatever, like ADD, getting the dopamine up and level. And like, I think that helped me a lot. And I just, I didn't really know, but I was always like just driven to do it. And I also really liked being able to just like plug in and like have that, uh, accountability and, being able to push yourself all the time. And that's because I was always struggling, like growing up after my parents divorced when I was 4, and then a custody battle, and then a stepdad that came into our life in second grade. And then he molested my sisters, and it wasn't like, I don't know, what happened to me, but I know that I have a lot of mental health struggles around sexual abuse and, trauma like that. And he stayed in our lives for too long, so it was just like constant, fight or flight, or just confusion, on who you can and can't trust. And so sports really just, it was like I didn't have that stability at home, and and all I knew was like just, like just go. And so I was kind of always in my head. And even though I was like playing and I was naturally good at them, like I, usually won like MVP or most improved if I just started, or like, and people would tell me that was, that was incredible. You're so fast. And I was always the fastest on every team, which is what made me that much better. But at the same time, that was just like, for me, that was like the bare minimum in a way. Like, of course I was pushing myself, but like not in the way that like actually is like focused intentionally on being your best. It was more like I was kind of going through the motions to an extent because I was struggling so much in my head and putting myself down constantly, and like never thinking I was good enough, never thinking I could be that good. Or I would think that people just don't, yeah, maybe I did good that game, but yeah, but that doesn't mean, like it was always just like not believing that things were okay in life, like that where I'm at is okay, and who I am, and just like trust, like celebrating. I never like celebrated things about my life or my accomplishments. I always just kind of like, I didn't want to get excited, like it was, because then you can get hurt, or like I'm not sure, but it was just something. I just really numbed myself a lot. And so yeah, I mean, in the sports that I did love that like actually got me out of that mindset were like wakeboarding and snowboarding, dirt biking, which I didn't get to do a lot of any of those because we didn't have a lot of money. And, dirt biking, that's very expensive. You need a boat with wakeboarding, so I got to go with friends, and then a friend's parent like paid for me to go with them snowboarding quite a few times. And that was awesome because that showed me that um, I love doing that, that like that I can feel that, like that kind of just zoning out and enjoying it and not having like the pressure. And I think pressure with competing for me, when I was struggling so much with the fight or flight all the time, it was, I think it just really brought me up to that stress level where I was sometimes just like really struggling to handle it because I was already going through something. Um, and so I tried, medications for mental health and therapy and so many things. And then, at this point, I have come a really long way, and I've learned so much about myself and what I do and don't like. And for me right now, competing is something that I don't want to go near. Like I haven't played like competitively wheelchair basketball since 2020. Um, I did play in one 3-on-3 tournament, which I kind of didn't want to play, but I felt like I didn't want to be lame and say no when they asked if I wanted to be on their team. And I was shooting air balls and like, I mean, you can't just expect yourself to have not trained for a year and then just go play. And everyone's like, oh, a Paralympian, gold medalist, she's gonna be so good. And then I'm like, no, like I'm not like I haven't even shot a hoop in a year. Like, but to me, I was like, Megan, you did this to yourself. Like you cannot, of course, and don't be so hard on yourself. You played. You should be able to just what I want is to be able to just enjoy like playing, even if I'm shooting air balls, because I'm just having fun and it's not like everything. But for me it's like if I'm not I like put my I always feel like I need to live up to something, and I'm getting way better at it because right now I coach a kids team, and that I am so passionate about that, but for me playing, that's not my passion. Like um and I think that realizing I can say no, like I didn't have to play in that 3-on-3, that really put me into this like stress mode that I had been really trying to stay away from because I was healing. And when I have those spikes in like fear or like just pressure, it could take me to like a place where I'm just putting myself down and hating myself and like regretting and like obsessing about how bad I just, and it's like I learned that I can say no and be confident about it because I don't have to be, not that I'm not an athlete, but I don't have to be. Like, that's not my full identity. And some people don't want to play. Some people like watching or like hanging out and being there, but like they don't want the pressure or it's just not what they do. And I feel like it's always been, to me, it's like I expected it when maybe that's not me. Maybe I like doing art and like more therapeutic, creative, like, and I do. I really have found peace with like working on wood and building and decorating, like designing, figuring out accessible spaces and just going inward and like processing. But yeah, so that learning that has helped me a lot. Like, and plus time has helped people like to stop maybe like always asking me if I want to come and play or being like, what, why, or like if I'm at like at the gym and they need another they need another body, like otherwise they can't do 5-on-5 or whatever, and that's so hard to say no, I don't want to, I just and then hear them be like, what? Now they know, like they want me to come out and hang out, like they don't, because for a while I just really didn't want to even go out into those places because I wanted to just find myself. And now they know like who I am, like that I'm not gonna be out there playing at this point. Like eventually maybe I have been getting the urge to like shoot hoops, and my boyfriend might put a basketball court at his house, which would be crazy because I would love to be able to shoot hoops at night, like with someone rebounding. It's been a dream of mine. Maybe that'll get me back into it, but
Yeah,
that,
just something low
yeah.
pressure, just to explore it again.
Yeah, it's something that you just, it's fun and I love shooting hoops, but when you add that pressure, oh, I totally respect and admire people who do handle that pressure well, and because I know it can be a lot, and I look up to that, so.
Yeah, definitely. And you explained it really well. I've not really thought about it before because I like sports where it's, yeah, like I loved basketball and football at school, but I used to get quite stressed even in those situations. It's quite like high, like cortisol, and that's only like at school. Compared to, I love surfing and I love like being in the water, and I'd love to learn to snowboard. And
Mm-hmm.
those kind of sports are, they're more in your body, aren't they? They're more in the flow, and
Mm-hmm.
they feel almost more like they're calming. There's
Yeah.
such different sports. I've not really
Mm-hmm.
thought about it like that before. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I didn't know that, I have ADD, like, or whatever that is. Like, I mean, it's my brain for sure. And that could be from trauma where, I'm not the most regulated, and the more I heal, obviously, the better I'm able to focus and not let like intrusive thoughts come in and stuff. But they say like if you have ADD, individual sports are better because of it's the less stimulation that's coming at you. And I had a really hard time on team sports. Like I was a really good shooter, but I would always like get worried that if I miss the shot, my teammates are going to be upset with me, and then they all have to get back on defense, and then we fight for the ball again, and I'm supposed to go and they want me and like to take it again, and I'm like, what if I like miss again and now we have to get back? And I just like I instead of just being like, sometimes shooters miss, obviously, like shooters miss and good shooters keep shooting. And I would always have a very hard time if I made the first like two or three shots, I was going to be so good, like confident, zoned in, like I had it, I was ready. But if I missed those first two or three, I would spiral and like worry and like read into like facial expressions, and like if my teammates are annoyed, and am I really supposed to shoot this, like, or do they, it was like caring so much about what other people thought of me, and not understanding that, like, for one, they miss too, and they might have a little bit of struggles, but like because we all are going through all of this stuff, and like they're not all thinking about me and my miss, and it's like that was hard for me to wrap my head around, that it's not that big of a deal. Like I just didn't have like that stability in my life, or that foundation of like a solid family, and like, you know, all of the things that you can learn about like emotional regulation and self-soothing, and like knowing your own worth and not questioning everything about yourself. And I think that from the sexual trauma of like it it's like it goes against everything that you feel inside, but you like the person, being our stepdad, it's like that there's a lot of manipulation involved, and I'm a kid, and like I think I didn't learn to trust myself, and because of all the things that were happening after that and before, with like a custody battle from our parents, and like it's like if you don't feel a certain way that makes this side happy or this side happy or this person, then like you're doing something wrong. And it's like I didn't understand that how I feel is how I feel, and that's okay. My feelings are my feelings, like no one can tell me that my feelings are wrong. And the sooner I was able, like with these last 3 years of all the work I've been doing on myself, like the sooner I was okay with being judged, or just knowing that like I know I'm doing what my heart believes is what I need to do for myself, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and this makes me happy or this doesn't make me happy, and I have choices. And you know all of those things have been like me learning how to believe in myself and not let all of the outside, what is stimulation or whatever, affect me so much. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
individual
definitely.
sports, but they're the expensive sports. So
That's where the
yeah.
money's at. Um,
Uh-huh.
in terms of like your support system around when you had the accident, how did you kind of navigate the situation? Did you have people around you, and like how did you kind of navigate the whole kind of journey?
Yeah. Our family was like pretty broken around that time, and had been forever. So but I mean, my sisters and my mom and my dad and my grandparents and everyone in my family loves and means well and wants to help others and like, but we all had so much going on in our own lives and trying to just handle all of the things that we didn't understand, individually and instead of like together. It was kind of like everyone went their own ways when everything happened in our childhood. Um, and so I was kind of like alone in my struggles and like being able to like talk to my family about stuff that, because I didn't even understand what it was I needed to talk about. So it's like, I just, I was like, everyone in my family knew I'd struggled with depression since I was like 14. So it was like, and that's all I knew. And I was told that, I have depression. It's probably genetic and try medication. And it's like, and I mean, my mom, struggled with it and like, and it just made sense. I was like, well, it must be in my family. Like, but also we experienced trauma. Like, that is something we didn't acknowledge because it was like not talked about. Like, it was always just like trying to just, I don't know, but there was no healing or acknowledgement or understanding. And I was still such a kid, through even at 18. And so, my family was all very there for me. Um, but I always like away from home. I would just go somewhere else or spend time with a friend and their family or like just try and stay busy. Not only because, the home life wasn't like super happy or anything, but also because if I didn't stay busy, I would go cry and go to sleep, like I would just, depression would take over me. And if I kept going, it wouldn't, like, to the extent that I had what I felt like was no chance. Like, I couldn't get out of bed and I couldn't stop crying and I couldn't stop hurting inside. And I just felt like life was so unbearable. So when I got in the accident, I was in the nursing home. I mean, I was in the hospital for 23 days. I was a passenger in a motorcycle accident. The guy was 21, I was 18. He had just gotten his motorcycle like 3 weeks earlier. It was a friend's friend. We were at a birthday party out that way. And anyway, he was giving my friends rides, and I didn't really want to go for a ride. And I don't know why. Just, I honestly probably like a little bit of the universe trying to, because usually I'll just go and whatever. But I ended up going for a ride when my friends talked me into it. And then, long story short, he lost control of the bike, and we were going around a corner, and he turned it too sharp. And we slid into a cement wall barrier. I was ejected off and I flipped and hit a street sign. And then I went over this like 15-foot drop and then 30 feet down this incline. And I broke like 18 bones altogether and had rods put in my arm and a cage in my back, and a collapsed lung and 4 broken ribs and all of that. And so, anyway, I was in the hospital for 23 days. And then after that, I had to heal before I could go to rehab and work on physical therapy because my upper body had like broken shoulder and arm, and you need to lift up. And so I could have gone home for that month, but I didn't want to go home because I was just so depressed. Like, I just wanted to be alone. And so I went to a nursing home while I healed and then went to rehab. But like, that was my choice for going to the nursing home because I didn't want to feel bad when people were helping me or bringing me food or when I didn't want to smile or talk or, I didn't want to feel the extra stress and guilt when I just need to process and like figure out how I'm going to handle this because life just got that much harder, and I already struggled so much. It was like running around and being active was how I handled it. And now I'm just like, so, so that like the support system, I mean, my dad came to the nursing home every morning and brought me a coffee on his way to work. Um, and yeah, it, there was support. And I went home to my mom's after rehab. And a church group had built a ramp for me and did the bathroom a little bit more accessible. Um, well, as accessible as they could make it with what they knew, but definitely like the sink was like up on top of a counter, so I could roll under it. But when I washed my face, the water would just run down my arms and like things like that, slash all of the struggles with accessibility in life were so hard for me to face when I got home because it was like it's like I'm supposed like I felt like bad that I was mad that, and they had just done this, you know, they just made this sink for me, and it's like is this just what I have to accept? Like things like, cause if that were like a design, I'm not saying that they wouldn't have made it better, but like if that was a design for able-bodied people, like a sink that every time they wash their face, like their water runs down their arms, or they have to like really lean over and like hurt themselves. But like that's just the design that's like all over the world, you know, like that's it's like that would never be a thing. Like because they would hate it. Like why would anyone but so many things for us, like where people with disabilities is always just okay, but like wanting more and of course trying to have more and make things better, but also not being so upset that like this is what is said to be acceptable because financially it's hard to make things better slash so many reasons that it's just hard to process all of that when you're like angry and sad and hopeless and like just all of those things. And yeah.
Yeah, I definitely get that. Um, and like in terms of the journey from like that point, was there like a turning point where you kind of pushed past it and started to
Yeah,
see a positive side of
that's a
things?
good, yeah, because like really, really depressed for like, well, I don't know. I would say when I first got home, the most depressed I was when I laid on the couch for 3 weeks straight, like didn't eat, barely drank water, like just stared at the TV and wasn't even watching it. Was just like I felt dead inside. Like I just didn't care. Like I did not care to make the effort to transfer into my wheelchair on the carpet, push in this oversized chair to get into the kitchen and carry a cup of water that I spill all over myself. And like, I don't even care to drink, you know, and I don't care to eat, but I know you need to. And so it was like, I was just constantly like, how are you going to do this? Like, you can't, you're not going to take your own life, which struggling with depression, it's like, I never wanted to take my own life during those times, but I wanted something to end my life. Like that was how I felt, and it's really dark, but I was just like I was hoping, and it's horrible to say, but I was hoping I would get cancer, or I was hoping that like just I was struggling so much. And what was I gonna say? Well, anyway, so I laid on the couch and I just felt sorry for myself. And my sisters would always like linger and like kind of keep an eye on me, you know, and I would just be annoyed of that. And like, so finally, like one day my mom came home and she asked if I wanted to go to the grocery store with her. And I knew that like I needed to start trying. And I did not want to go, but I knew I had to. So I went to the grocery store and like the first that was like the baby step of me getting stronger because going to the grocery store at that time when there's not as much awareness about disability, and there still isn't, but there's a lot more. Like we see it on TV, we see that there's opportunities that you can still have a life. Like there's sports, there's but back then it was like no one knew anything, and I was like the only girl in a wheelchair in the town, you know, or at least in my, I don't know. That's all I knew, and not so I would go in there and everyone would stare at me, and it was a small town, so everyone knew about my story, and it was just very sad. Like I was the girl who was very athletic and had so much going for her, but you know, threw it all away, or tragedy or whatever their opinions were. Just trying to get through the store without crying like took a very long time because I could see them looking at me, and I'm trying to just hold my head up and pretend like I'm not different, like everything is fine, and it's not a big deal, and there's no need to judge me or to look at me differently, or because I'm just me, even though I knew I wasn't, you know. And so then they would come up and they would say, "Oh, I'm so sorry this happened to you. You're too young to be in a wheelchair," or things like "You're too pretty to be in a wheelchair," or all these things that were so confusing and weird to me because I'm just like, "Oh, well, I'm in one." Like, so I don't know what, you know, that means, but like, I mean, it's just so weird. And it just felt like it felt like they were telling me that this is the horrible life, you know, like we're so sorry, like, and it's just like that thought process is not helpful. It's I get where it comes from and I understand, and you know, I wouldn't have wanted everyone to just be like, "Oh, hey Megan," like just as if my life just like nothing changed, you know? So I did need to go through that, and but it still was like very hard for me to constantly fight back against it, and say, "Oh no, it's, you know, I'm doing good," like, or you know, like, and then the other one that they would always say is that I'm such an inspiration, and I know everyone hears that like with disability, it's like all the time, and or not as much, I think, with the representation. And but anyway, that when they would say that, it really, really bothered me because that's kind of it reminded me that that's how I felt when I would play sports, and I knew that I didn't really try, and they thought that I just did so great, and I knew that I was holding back because I was insecure, or I was, you know, scared, or I didn't go kick that ball into the goal because I was scared I would miss, you know, or like, so when they said I was an inspiration, and I knew that all I've been doing is laying on the couch and crying, and like I don't want to even be alive, like that, it just never lined up with, you know, it's like I don't want to feel this way about myself. And if they're gonna keep saying it, and then I want to actually be one, you know, or like do something that I don't have to constantly feel this way, because I knew what it felt like, all the regret for the life I used to have, and I wasn't pushing myself. And so that is what kind of like jump started me, but I still didn't know how I was gonna even have a life or do anything. And so I started by going to the YMCA every day, like 5 days a week, and I would just lift weights and just try and handle all of the things I'm taking in, of like watching them hold, like get to like pick up games for basketball on Tuesday and Thursday, and volleyball on Wednesday and Friday. And like I love volleyball. That's one of the other ones that I enjoy, like outside of and I just wanted to be that like like that teenager who graduated high school and now has a life where you can work, and then you can go on a Tuesday night and go play, you know, and like be with your friends and be active. And I just like didn't even have that opportunity to try. And I was like, well, maybe I wouldn't have even been doing that if, you know, even if I hadn't gotten in the accident, because I struggled with depression. And it's like that confusion about, who am I anyway? Like, am I just depressed and like I'm weak, and like this is, but so that I faced that there. And then this kid, after doing that for like 3 months, this kid came into the YMCA, and he had been in an accident around the same time, and he was in a wheelchair, and he asked them if they knew anyone else in a wheelchair that he could talk to. And so they gave me his number, and I called him, and he told me about some guys that get together and play wheelchair basketball, like pickup games, like 30 minutes from like where we were, and so we went and checked it out, and I I didn't necessarily like love it right away, and there's so many reasons, like equipment that fits or doesn't, coaching, and like, you know, but I did know that like that was my second chance, and that was going to be my way out of this like dark hole that I was in. It was like my light at the end of the tunnel. Like when I learned that there were colleges that offer full ride scholarships, and there was the Paralympics and all this opportunity if you just give it your all, and I needed to do that because I didn't do it before my accident, and it was a chance for me. Like I would have loved to have had a soccer scholarship and play on the US soccer team like that. Who knows if I would have, and if I ever would have gotten my mental health together, yeah, but I don't know if I would have ever been able to get through that and really, give it what you need to give it. Um, so that was how it started. And then 3 years later, I earned a full ride wheelchair basketball scholarship to the University of Illinois, and I played there for 5 years. And then I made the USA team in 2013 after the 2012 Paralympics, when a lot of the Paralympians take a year off, and they kind of, it's more of a development year. So they took like 20 of us, or something, like a bigger number than the 12. And then the next year I made it again for the Pan American Games in Canada, and we won gold at the Pan. And then I made it, oh wait, the World Championships, and then the Pan, and then the Paralympic team. And then we won gold at the 2016 Paralympics. So it was pretty awesome. And yeah. Yeah. And then there's like a whole nother chapter after the Paralympics, and then there's another chapter of back with the Paralympics, and then another, but it's a lot.
Such a
Yeah.
journey. And like, how do you feel? Because you said going back to when you went to the grocery store the first time, and people say you're such an inspiration. How do you feel now when people say that, but they're referring to your achievements?
Um, I feel good. I don't feel like it's said as much. Just like, I think there's more of like a open understanding that like people in wheelchairs can go grocery shopping, and like they can do it, like, and
Yeah.
they do it, like, and we're out there, like, we exist. We're not like, oh my gosh, whoa, so I don't really have to feel that as much as I did back then, where it was like everyone, like, and now, like, I even noticed in 2019, once we started, like, getting more commercials and representation, when I was at the airport, that's where, you would hear so many things, and people would be like, oh, is that a racing chair? And I'm like, no, it's a basketball wheelchair. Racing chair looks like this. And like, just try and educate them a little bit so that the next time they can approach someone and like sound more like understanding of what they're talking about, and because I kind of always felt like it was just trying to make small talk or a little bit of like pity with like, but not always. I mean, I know people are also excited, but after the representation got better, at the airport, people would ask you like, oh, is that a basketball wheelchair? Like they knew. And they would ask questions that actually weren't just throwing something at you, like, oh, are you playing quad rugby? Or like, just the sports were actually like understood, and people didn't stare as much. They like minded their, they just, it was normal. It was more normal. Like, it wasn't so shocking to see us there. And it was really cool to like start experiencing the change. And it was like really obvious, like you could feel it. So now, yeah, I don't really have to like hear stuff like that, like for going to the grocery store. But if they do tell me, I do know that I've done stuff that, like it it's cool. So,
Yeah, yeah,
and
definitely
I
makes it.
try my best. So I know that like I'm not trying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it must be such a weird dynamic to experience for the first time, because for me, being disabled my whole life, all of my interactions have been laced with it, like the
Hmm.
ableism, like throughout school and work. Like I used to work at a hospital, and I'd have like patients come up to me and be like, "Oh, you're such an inspiration. Thank you so much for showing up today and looking after me." And like, I know it's meant in a nice way, but it feels
Uh-huh.
yucky. And that's the only way I can
Yeah.
describe it, is it feels yucky. And it was
Hmm.
only a few years ago that I learned of the term ableism. And then I was like, ah, okay. Like that's what this is, that feels yucky. And that
Uh-huh.
makes, yeah, like basic tasks and inspiration. And
Yeah.
like you said, we go around, we go to the shops, we live a life. And
Yeah.
it's nice to celebrate achievements. But day-to-day
Yeah.
living might feel like it sometimes, like when I broke my arm and then I had to start again.
Hmm.
But like once you're living your life again and you've adapted, it doesn't feel like an achievement anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that like those responses or comments are like, "Oh, thank you for showing up today and taking care of me," is like it's like I always felt like there was like this Tupperware lid on top of me, like right after my accident, where it was like putting me in a box, and it was like telling me that this is a crappy life. It's gonna be sad. You can't really do a lot. Yeah, you were so young, this is such a tragedy. And it's like, and I was always just trying so hard to like get it off of me and just be free and be like, yes, you can. You can do things. And no, this is not a crappy life. But it was like, all of those comments constantly were like putting me back, even though I was trying so hard. And my efforts were also like hard because accessibility, it's like, okay, I can do this. And then you go and you try, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is taking me 8 hours to like drag this piece of wood and, do like pull these weeds or whatever. Like, this isn't realistic. Like, this isn't, but yes, it is. This is what it takes, and you can do it. It just is gonna look different, but nothing saying you can't do it. But all of the yucky feelings, it was just like, no, like, I understand you're trying to be nice, but that is not, that's not, that's not helpful. Like, it's just like what it's doing to me, and not only me, but like these little kids who they're just being raised with it. Like, it's like they don't even realize that they're just being molded to accept that, like, oh, that's not something I can do, or that, this is sad, like I have a sad life, or like, when none of that is true. They just need opportunities and, a little extra support maybe, but like they can excel. And yeah, I think that's the yuckiness.
Yeah, definitely. And it turns into that kind of the internalized ableism, where it's you have limited beliefs in what you're able
Yeah.
to do. Like I had it, where I didn't think I'd have a family. Like I didn't think I'd have children. And it was like so
Yeah.
ingrained in me by the time I was 5, 6, that I saw a
Yeah.
mum with a limb difference, and it blew my mind. I was like, it just questioned everything I thought I knew about the world.
What caused your limb difference?
I was just born like it. So they didn't pick it up in scans. Um, so I was surprised when I was
Yeah,
born.
I ask because it's like, and I know it that's how it happens, but like for you to think that you couldn't have kids or have a family, it's not like something is like taking over your body that's like ruin, and that's it's just like it's just what, half an arm you have, like,
Hmm.
or what,
Yeah, just below
it's
my
like,
elbow.
and that can make you feel like you're not worth like a family or like any of it. Like, that is, and it's so wild
Hmm.
that we think like, one little thing, like some people are like, oh no, because they lost like the tip of their finger and they're like super embarrassed and always want to like cover it up. And it's like, it's so wild.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
really is.
I definitely didn't, I had a hard time believing I was gonna find a relationship or have that, all of that. And even right now, like accessibility, having a kid, I mean, you need accessibility or else you can't really like help out with your partner as much if you can help out in those ways. Like just like to make it to have your best chance. And it's like how do you process all of that? And like I don't know, but it's all very possible, of course. And I have a great
Mm.
relationship now, and he's helped me through a lot because yeah, a lot of trust issues, a lot of insecurities and everything, but so much healing can be done in a relationship.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
How did you meet your partner?
When I was up the street throwing bricks, for the last 3 years, because I was making an accessible path around the house I was renting, and he just saw me. He had gone through a divorce. He's older. He's 13 years older. But he was married for 20 years and he was like really trying to work on himself and he was running all the time and I was working on myself and I was like tunnel visioned in trying to keep all distractions out, just listen to myself and know that I'm just doing what my heart's telling me, even though it looks crazy, throwing like 400 bricks across the yard. Just everyone can see, it's like, I don't know. It was a wild process. But anyway, he saw me and started uh, courting me or pursuing me or whatever. And it turns out he has a 22-year-old son who has a form of spina bifida. But they didn't know about like any sports or anything for him growing up. And his feet, it's like one of them is fused and the other one, but like he didn't get to grow up playing sports and like learning about who he was and and my boyfriend and his wife like didn't have those resources, and yeah, it's it's cool because dating him, he's gone to every practice and tournament for the kids team I'm coaching and he's been doing like the equipment for me. Like I'll be like, that chair needs to be adjusted and we like fix all the kids' chairs. And because that's another thing that can hold them back from knowing their potential is if their chair doesn't fit them. But no one else around them knows that. They just think the kid's disability is and it,
Mm.
so anyway, he helps me do that. And I think that it's been cool for him to see that side of life growing up because he went through, raising his son without all of that community that is so so good for you. And these kids are so athletic and awesome and yeah. Hmm.
That's awesome. And has his son given anything a go since meeting you?
No, but I'm still hoping that I'm just trying. He says he would be open to it, but I know that if you don't approach it the right way, he might like end up not wanting to or but I hope he comes out and tries wheelchair basketball just for fun. I got him to go to like a dinner with some of the guys on the team. We just brought him with us and so he could meet them and start there. I don't know if he'll ever play. I don't know if he wants to. It's not like, that's the other thing is when it's the only opportunity you have, it's like, well, maybe this kid isn't want to do competitive sports. Maybe they want to dance or they want to, but like it's like, well, this is the opportunity we have. So, so it's like, I don't know. I think it would be so good for him. He's really trying to find himself and, um, I hope, but no, I haven't.
That's awesome though. It's great that he knows he's got that opportunity now. Like, I think just knowing
Yeah.
that you can if you want to is a big
Hmm.
enough deal.
Yeah.
And that you said that you found yourself in basketball a little bit, but then more outside of basketball. So,
Hmm.
who is Megan now? Like the last 3 years?
Um, I think, I think who I am is a very, um, I'm very energetic. I, I really care about everyone having a good time. I like to create situations where everyone feels good, and um I like I love coaching. I really love being creative and like artistic and like going inside and problem solving and understanding why something bothers me, like the why does this kitchen sink, what, or because I want to do interior design, and so like I think it helps me to process and understand that, like, instead of not realizing why I feel the way I feel, and just taking it as like, oh, I'm sad, or oh, it's like, no, actually your feet hurt. Have you noticed, like, pay attention. That's hard because now you gotta go wash your face in a sink that you have to stand up to reach, and that's weighing on you. So you don't really want to get out of bed, and it's like, but then when I get up and I process it, and then I think about solutions, and like, and it's all like this creative moving forward, finding myself, understanding my emotions, and so I don't know who I am exactly, but I hope that I turn into some kind of designer, confident, like, I hope, I'm hoping to go back to school this fall and learn how to use the programs and believe in myself that I'm capable of learning, because computer stuff is not my thing. I've fallen so far behind. And I don't know. I figure out my ADD. Oh, no. Yeah. Um, I guess just slowing down and enjoying life and not being so scared that everything is just gonna fall apart like in overnight, Like, I'm really learning to just trust where I'm at and that it's okay, and my boyfriend loves me, and um like, everything's okay. Like, you're in a good spot, you're supported, you're you have opportunities that are happening in your life, and you're gonna be able to handle them, and you can have what you dream of. That's where I'm at.
100%. And is there anything that you would say to someone who is kind of back in that, or what you described as kind of like a dark spot?
It said something to me, like, she's someone that I would call crying all the time, call her while I was crying. And she would answer all my calls and just be there for me. And she told me one time, because I just felt so pathetic and so weak, and that, like, I'm a mess and this is who I am. Like, I am too much. I'm, all this stuff. And she's like, what you're going through is not who you are. Like, and it was like, because I had showed her so much of that side of me that I'm so embarrassed about. And I feel like if they really knew all, they would all think that way. And she is the one who straight up knew, like, she can hear me crying and talking negatively about myself for however many times and still see me as I'm going through something, because I'm a human, and that it will pass. Like, it's not going to be forever, and it's not who I am. It's just what I'm going through. So I think that helped me drastically to just not be so hard on myself and start realizing in just a few hours I'm gonna feel different. Like, in a, if I maybe take a nap, if I, just, this day was this day, but I'm gonna go to sleep, and tomorrow's a new day. And maybe tomorrow will be hard too, but there will come a day when it starts to feel better. And then the other thing too is recognizing that I'm a woman and I have hormones that change all throughout the month, and And like that week, PMS is very hard for me. Like, and I never recognized it. Everything was blurred into one. And now when I get to that week and I start having anxiety and like obsessive thoughts or ruminating, or I know I check the app because I use it to help me keep track, and it's like, oh my God. Okay. So we just gotta hold on, like just you got this, it's gonna pass. It always does. And I've been recognizing that for like the whole 18 months I've been with my boyfriend. And like, so that's like my first, like 18 months ago is when I first was like, I think this is the thing. I think like this might be. And it gets easier each time, because each time I learn a little to hold on a little better, or to recognize it sooner before I don't know what's happening to me. So I think that's really helpful too. I wish I would have known that about myself and being a girl a lot better growing up, but I did not.
100%. Yeah, I'm going through the same discovery.
Yeah.
And I literally checked my app today and I was like, oh, okay, the world isn't ending. Like, we can
Uh-huh.
just take a breath and maybe hibernate for a week. Like,
Yeah, whatever.
but,
Like, don't schedule things around this week. Like, that's a tool that you can try. It doesn't always work out, but you can know that's a time you're not gonna want to have things that are gonna be really hard for you.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And it's something they don't teach you at school. Like, well, no one teaches you it, do they?
Well,
We
I don't
never.
know what they teach you now, but no, it wasn't like a priority. And I mean, birth control was given to me when I was like 13 for acne. Like, so now I won't like take birth control. I mean, when I first started dating my boyfriend, I wasn't on it because I wanted to be off all medications for a while and just see what is going on with me and why. Um and I didn't want to get on it when I started dating him, because I was like, I need to know how I'm affected by my own body before I add in something that is going to confuse me. Like, I won't know why this a side effect or is this me? Like, and so that's why I was so adamant, really started paying attention. And like, yeah, they say birth control can like level you out a little bit sometimes. I mean, I don't know, but it's like I needed to know how unlevel I was, like I needed to really to understand everything I've been struggling with in my life. Like, I'm sure that, there were quite a few tournaments or games where I was spiraling and I was PMSing, and it was really hard, extra hard to handle the pressure and everything else. And that's like the journey I've needed to be on, where I take myself out of that competition and all of that so that I'm less stressed. And it's not like, well, is this because I'm PMSing, or is this because I have a big game coming up? Like, why am I losing it? Like, um, so I think that, there's so many reasons. I just knew that I needed to slow down and just figure it out. And it's been so great. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I messaged my friend it was last month, this time last month, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know whether to just like put myself on the pill. Will that make it better? Will that calm it down?
Hmm.
But then, like you said, like it's about harnessing it as well, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
um, doing the right things at the right time. Like right now, hibernate.
Yeah.
And
And recognize it, and like, and just start like, yeah, like it helps like with the 18 months with my boyfriend, and we've been on this journey together, because at first he was like, oh yeah, PMS, uh-huh, like sometimes guys can do. And that's kind of also why I never took it seriously growing up, because it was like, it was always a joke, like, oh, she's PMSing, or oh. And I was like, well, I don't get like mean and like aggressive, but it's like, I mean, to an extent, maybe I do, and I just didn't even realize it, but I mean, mostly I get sad and like have a lot of anxiety, but that can cause you to maybe lash out, or like have you think something's happening that's not, or um but each month, because I wasn't good at keeping track of it, so it was like obvious. I didn't use the app for a while, and I would be like, I think I'm PMSing, and he's like, And then like I'll start my period and I'll be like, oh my God, I was like, is it not like I was like, I'm PMSing, that's why, it was like, I don't know. Um, and it was like, I would also like end up staying up all night, like right before my period started. I wouldn't be able to sleep. Like it would be, so it was like obvious that like my hormones were just, but over the 18 months, we got to a point like, there it was a couple months. It was like in the last whatever, where I was like, oh my gosh, we just made it through a PMS without me crying. And I was like, that's like the first time in my life. Like, 'cause each time, like, I mean, I can't say how it's gonna keep going, but it has gotten like easier. But also, I did up my antidepressant and SSRI Zoloft. I was taking 38 milligrams. I started on the lowest and then I got to there and it was good, but I still had a lot of like anxiety and so I upped it to 50 and I'm not going to go higher than that, but they say that can help with PMS too. And I do think that that has helped with the extra anxiety that I would start feeling around that time.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I
Yeah.
could talk about that forever.
It's a journey. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's good to be able to like, I don't know, like learn about it from each other as well because yeah,
Yeah.
when
I
you don't know, you don't know.
And I don't think girls have talked about this kind of stuff a lot, So,
Mm.
yeah, now they are
Yeah.
more. So,
It's been such a journey for you. Like, how do you now kind of notice when you need to support your mental health in a different way? And like, what do you do at the moment?
well, I've been in like a really weird place because I just had an ankle surgery on both my ankles. So I've been in cast for like 2.5 months and then I just got them off, but I'm still waiting for leg braces. So everything, I've just been like, my life is, my new chapter life is kind of just getting started. Like, I just got a couple of jobs with adaptive recreation and then I'll have coaching. But I've just been kind of staying at home. I coached a camp a couple of weeks ago, but for the most part, I've just been at home and like doing art projects and rearranging and trying to get rid of stuff and trying to help myself to a place where I have clarity around me and I'm organized and know more about myself. So I've been able to, when I'm having anxiety or I'm having a hard time getting out of bed, I just don't have to get out of bed, to an extent. Like I say, okay, like that's how it is today. And it's like that might last, like it might take me, until like 11 to get out of bed sometimes. And not lately, but like there was like a time where I was doing that for like 5 days. It was right near the end of the cast, and I think I was just like so just over it or something. But then it changed, and like I don't struggle to get out of bed, and it's not like I was turning into like a lump on the log, it was like I don't even know if that's a term, but like I said this is where you're at for whatever reason, and you need the extra sleep. Like you're tired right now. Your body's going through whatever it and I mean I know we don't all have time to just take a nap when we're feeling overwhelmed, or like do those things to always allow ourselves to feel what we feel. We have to a lot of times like just push through it and but I think the most the biggest thing is just allowing myself to take a break and like not feel ashamed or guilty for sleeping in. Like I don't have anything I have to do early at this point, and it's like but I would judge myself and beat myself up all morning because I don't want to get out of bed and like I said I had a lot of pain going on like in my feet. I had the accessibility frustrations. I had the depression just weighing down on me and like all of that hard to get through and I was scared to do this surgery. Like I just kept putting it off, but I knew there's a possibility it could free me from some of this stuff that's so hard to fight every day. Like sometimes when we're not doing what we know we want to do, then it like weighs on us. And so one of my things is just all these random projects that are around me or clothes I wanted to go through, and get rid of or clean out. Like because I have the time to just do what I can when I want it, and I have been. And every day, even if it's just one thing, it builds, and so that's kind of what I've been doing is showing myself that when you just do it, like it gets the clarity and it gets better. But that's like new for me to learn because I think I've just gone in circles for so long in my life, or like almost get to a spot where, because I know I want to do this or I know I want to try it, but everyone thinks it's a bad idea or they don't understand why, and so then I end up not doing it, or they say it's going to be too hard. And it's like, I don't really care. Like, who are you to say what's hard anyway? Like, maybe what's hard to you, it is not hard to me, or vice versa. So I just make sure I do it because I won't get it out of my system until I do, to an extent.
It sounds like a really good balance, though. There's so much to be
Yeah.
said for like slowing down and knowing when to step away from one thing, move away from one thing, and
Yeah.
focus on another, like you said with your basketball, moving away from that and focus on
Hmm.
yourself, and then
Yeah.
having the time and the space to give yourself rest and also do the things you want to do around that.
Yeah. Well, in quitting the basketball team, that decision, like, that took me like 4 months to make, where I was like in agony. Like, it was during COVID, and I just was so struggling to get out of bed. I thought, because I got off the antidepressant at that time. It wasn't working for me, and I was not doing well, but I didn't want to quit the team just because my mental health wasn't good. I was like, how do I know if I'm quitting because I'm scared and I don't want to face this like pressure because of fear that I'm not good enough, or because it's just not what I want to do and it's not what's making me happy. I'm not excited to get up in the morning. I don't want to go to the gym and just train and like I, but I don't know how to know, because I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, why am I not happy? Like, and quitting it was so hard, but it wasn't lining up with who I was, but I don't want to quit and run from things. Like, that's my biggest thing. I want to make sure that I'm not letting my mental health run my life. I, but I wasn't. Me quitting was actually facing something, like it was me taking back control. But you have to keep going. Like, quitting it was just the first step, and now I have to keep showing myself why I quit, and not let myself start feeling like I made a mistake, or what am I doing with my life? And like, you just had to like write it out, and it was the best thing for me, but it was so hard to do.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine. It's such a big call, but it sounds like it gave you the space to process everything else. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
good.
Hmm.
Awesome. But yeah, so how can our listeners find you on Instagram, Facebook?
I have two Instagrams. One of them is just Megan Blunk. And that one kind of got hacked. It like all these like spam followers. There's like 30,000 fake ones that are on my account. Like, they wouldn't stop coming. And I never asked to like buy fake followers. I don't know why this happened, but I couldn't get it to stop, and it was like really ruining the algorithm, like if they're like 30,000 are fake, it's not going to show up in the people who are actually following you. So I started a new one when I started the project on my yard, and it's Megan Blunk Round 3. So round and then the number 3. And I thought of it like there's before the accident, there's after the accident, and then there's after the accident. So
I
that's
love that.
round 3. Yeah. And then Facebook is just Megan Blunk, but really it's more my Instagram but everything I share on Instagram goes to Facebook. So
Well, thank you so much for your time. I've loved chatting to you, and I definitely want to get you back on the pod and talk more around accessible design, especially with you going to college. So yeah, we'll definitely chat again soon.
Yeah, cool. Okay, thanks for having me.